Comment down below where you're watching from and don't forget to like and subscribe if you hate Karen. My name is Daniel Whitaker, and until recently the greatest challenge in my neatly ordered life was taming a finicky sourdough starter. I live on Sycamore Bend Drive, a quiet loop inside Larkspur Ridge Meadows, where robins chirp, sprinklers hiss at dawn, and the homeowners gossip about mulch selections. My corner lot includes a broad, U-shaped driveway, wide enough to accommodate a 17-foot fishing boat, 2 aging British roadsters, and, as it turned out, the overinflated ego of one Marjorie Sloane. Marjorie is the neighborhood's resident "I know what's best for everyone" crusader. Platinum bob, neon activewear, a booming voice that could part clouds, she is relentlessly certain of her own righteousness. The asphalt that arcs around my house happens to shave 30 seconds off the slight curve of Sycamore Lane. To Marjorie, those seconds apparently justify treating my property like a public right-of-way. At first it was her Range Star XL, a gargantuan SUV the color of a migraine aura, idling across my concrete, skirting the lilac borders I've pruned into tidy mounds of purple fragrance. Then came her friends, then their friends, until a daily procession of minivans and hatchbacks cut the corner, carving ruts through my lawn and clipping, with tragic predictability, the cedar post mailbox. 4 times now I've replaced that box. I know the hardware store clerk's grandkid's birthday thanks to those shopping trips. I attempted civility. One evening, armed with a pitcher of iced tea and what I hoped was a neighborly smile, I asked Marjorie to kindly remain on the road. She laughed, patted my arm like a child requesting too many bedtime stories, and proclaimed she was saving fuel and promoting community flow. Next, I left notes, first gentle, then pointed, finally exasperated: private drive. Please respect property. Each vanished under the Range Star's spinning tires. The finale of her audacity arrived as the Sloane Shortcut Social. Every Thursday at 4, Marjorie rallied a fleet of carpooling parents to gather in my drive before soccer practice. Watching a minivan execute a donut over my prize lilacs was the horticultural equivalent of a gut punch. That evening, I stood beside my ruined flower beds, mud cakes on my loafers, and realized herbal tea and passive-aggressive signage would never tame Marjorie Sloane. Larkspur Ridge's covenants were clear: property lines are sacrosanct. I needed something taller than her SUV's ego, something she couldn't roll over. Thus the idea of a barrier, no, a bastion, took root. A 10-foot wall of interlocking spruce planks, stained deep cedar brown, stretching the length of my frontage. It would redirect her traffic and, poetic justice, force her to drive the very curve she tried to erase. Before a single post hole could be dug, I required approval from the Larkspur Ridge Neighborhood Council. Fortunately, its president, Mrs. Eugenia Hawthorne, adored 2 things: strict bylaws and homemade chocolate chip cookies. I excel at both paperwork and pastry. Armed with photographs of tire damage, a meticulous fence blueprint, and a tin of still-warm cookies, I marched toward the next council meeting, unaware that the fence would be the least memorable part of what was about to unfold. The sourdough would have to wait. War, it appeared, had come to Sycamore Bend. Wednesday evening found me standing before the 7-member Larkspur Ridge Neighborhood Council, a semicircle of folding chairs, clipboards, and watchful eyes beneath the clubhouse's fluorescent glare. At center sat Mrs. Eugenia Hawthorne, her silver bun held together by something resembling a knitting needle. She adjusted her reading glasses, inhaled the aroma wafting from my cookie tin, and invited me to state the matter at hand. I clicked my laptop to project the first slide, a diagram of Sycamore Bend Drive with a bold maroon arrow illustrating Marjorie Sloane's shortcut. Gasps fluttered when residents saw the gouges her Range Star XL had left in the grass. A second slide displayed my proposed remedy, a 10-foot cedar fence, stained woodland umber, capped with a modest lattice. The design complied with every measurement in subsection 6.3 of the Architectural Harmony Guidelines. Councilman Vijay Patel leaned forward. 10 feet seems imposing. Could an 8-footer suffice? I flipped to slide 3, revealing a photo of Marjorie perched atop a 6-foot retaining wall at the spring Easter egg hunt, retrieving her child's lost basket. Laughter rippled. "I'm afraid Ms. Sloane has a demonstrable vertical capability," I said. 8 feet would merely be a challenge. Mrs. Hawthorne's eyes twinkled. "And the color?" "Approved palette swatch number 72, woodland umber. Non-reflective, environmentally friendly stain." I indicated a brush-out sample. "Blends with our mature spruces." Councilwoman Lucia Moreno reached for a cookie. "Delicious." She turned to Eugenia. "I vote yes." Votes tallied 5 in favor, 1 opposed, and 1 reluctant assent, Mr. Griffin, who feared the wall might block migrating monarch butterflies. I promised trellised milkweed plantings along the inside face. Butterflies assuaged, motion carried. Permits in hand, I called Evergreen Timberworks, whose foreman, Harold, expressed enthusiasm once he realized the project pitted him against an HOA-level tyrant. "We'll drive those posts so deep her SUV'll need a passport to touch 'em," he chuckled. Delivery of materials was scheduled for the following Tuesday. Meanwhile, I prepared the battlefield. I transplanted vulnerable lilacs to temporary pots, trimmed back the hydrangea hedge, and placed polite, "Fence work in progress, please detour," signs at both driveway entrances. Predictably, Marjorie ignored them. Friday afternoon, her range star thundered across the gravel and nearly flattened the sawhorse. She rolled down the tinted window. "What's with the yard sale?" she barked. "Future construction," I replied. "You'll receive the council's notice." She scoffed. "This is about your silly grass. Daniel, we're neighbors. Be reasonable." I gestured to the ruts. "I have been 12 times." She revved the engine. "We'll see what the bylaws say." I smiled. "So will you." That weekend, packages arrived from Evergreen, posts like telephone poles, rails pre-cut, buckets of stain. Neighbors strolled by, admiring the cedar scent, offering unsolicited design suggestions, and, in what I considered an omen, delivering fresh mulch for the milkweed beds. Tuesday dawned clear. Harold's crew set augers spinning, soil flying in neat corkscrews. By midday the first section stood plumb and proud. From my study window I watched Marjorie's range star approach, slow, and stop. Her silhouette stiffened behind the windshield. She idled for a full minute, then gunned away, engine growling like a thwarted grizzly. Construction lasted 3 days. On Friday evening we brushed the final coat of woodland umber under the amber glow of utility lights. Harold hammered the gate latch, swung it once to test, and pronounced, "Fortress complete." He refused payment in cookies, so I offered a future boat ride instead. At sunrise Saturday, I brewed coffee and stepped outside to admire the wall, 10 solid feet of cedar, gentle lattice up top, milkweed seedlings tucked below. It felt less like a barricade and more like armor, a declaration that civility need not be synonym for surrender. Across the street, curtains twitched. I sensed Marjorie plotting her response. But the post holes were set in 2 feet of concrete, and the bylaws were set in ink. For the first time in months, my driveway lay silent, virginal stripes of dew unscarred by tire tracks. I took a triumphant sip of coffee, feeling almost sorry for the battle my neighbor was destined to lose. Almost. Dinner time Tuesday brought calm, chicken piccata cooling on the stove, Chopin floating from the radio, sourdough proofing under a tea towel. Then the horn blasts began, short, furious stabs that rattled my windows in 4 out of 4 time. I peeked through the blinds. The Range Star XL idled nose to fence, headlights glaring like interrogation lamps. Marjorie threw open the driver's door, stilettos skittering on gravel. She shrieked, "Daniel Whitaker, you open this gate right now." I considered ignoring her, but bread waits for no tantrum. I stepped outside, wiping flour from my hands. "Evening, Miss Sloane. Something wrong with your GPS?" She jabbed a manicured finger at the fence. You can't block community access. This neighborhood needs efficient traffic flow. Traffic flow, I echoed, is what Sycamore Lane was paved for. Her eyes narrowed. I'll be late for book club. I raised an eyebrow. The one you chaired after banning mysteries because they encourage suspicion. Her cheeks flushed crimson. She marched to the rear hatch of the Range Star, emerged with a collapsible stepladder, and planted it against the cedar like a siege tower. Up she climbed, grunting gracelessly. At the apex, she discovered the lattice height plus her heels still left her dangling. She swatted the air. I have rights. Actually, you have trespass warnings, I said, holding up a laminated letter from Officer Reese, obtained after last spring's mailbox massacre. She descended, stilettos sinking into mulch, and yanked her phone free. I'm calling the sheriff. This is harassment. I sighed. Some men fear confrontation, I fear dough collapse. But duty called. Make sure to mention you're blocking my private drive, I suggested. Accuracy aids dispatch. 15 minutes later, red and blue strobes pierced twilight. Deputy Reese himself emerged, accompanied by Deputy Laney Chen, a rookie with a calm smile. Reese tipped his hat. Evening, Mr. Whitaker. Ms. Sloane. Marjorie launched into performance art, clutching her chest, breath hitching, accusing me of imprisoning her within her own neighborhood. Reese listened, expression carved from granite. When she finished, he asked one question, Ms. Sloane, do you possess an easement granting you passage over Mr. Whitaker's drive? Silence. Crickets dared not chirp. Deputy Chen cleared her throat. For the record, we've fielded 6 complaints about your driving across this property in the last quarter. She glanced at my milkweed. That's lovely habitat, by the way. Marjorie's fury pivoted to desperation. Fine. But he sabotaged the shortcut without community consent. Reese flipped his notebook. Council minutes show unanimous approval. You voted absent. She spluttered. I had Pilates. Chen's radio crackled. She relayed details, then addressed Marjorie, Ms. Sloane, you may choose another route or face a citation for trespass and misuse of emergency services. Marjorie's posture crumbled. She pointed a trembling finger at the fence. It's ugly, she muttered, before retreating to the Range Star. As she executed an awkward 3-point turn, her tire clipped a curb, crunching alloy. A collective wince rippled among onlookers. She sped away, taillights vanishing beyond the maple canopy. Deputy Reese handed me a card. Call if she returns with ladders. Will do, I said. Any interest in sourdough? He accepted a wrapped loaf gratefully. Chen declined, gluten-free, but asked for my milkweed supplier. The cruiser rolled off, leaving calm night air and, for the first time, unmarred gravel. Inside, I rescued the dough from potential overproof, sliding loaves into the oven. Through the kitchen window I admired the cedar silhouette, now burnished amber in porch-light glow. A fortress, yes, but also an artwork, proof that boundaries can be beautiful. Later, scrolling neighborhood social media, I discovered a post from Marjorie, a grainy photo of my fence captioned, Menace to Community Connectivity, who's with me? Comments numbered 3, 1 spam ad, 1 neutral face emoji, and 1 reply from Mrs. Hawthorne, connectivity preserved. Please use the actual street. I almost felt sorry for Marjorie, until I remembered mailbox number 4. I set a timer for the bread, brewed chamomile, and toasted to cedar, concrete, and the rule of law. Marjorie's next tactic wasn't speed, it was stealth. She began leaving anonymous complaint slips in mailboxes. Fence violates sightline safety, fence attracts termites, fence emits negative energy. Each unsigned, each printed on the same lilac-scented stationery she favored. I collected them in a folder labeled Delusions. The neighborhood council grew weary. Mrs. Hawthorne summoned Marjorie and me for mediation. In the clubhouse's small conference room, eucalyptus oil diffusers attempted détente. Hawthorne opened, Ms. Sloan contends your fence causes community disharmony. I offered a printout from the county assessor confirming 0 safety violations. Marjorie countered with a photo of alleged termite droppings. I identified them as cedar sawdust from installation. Mrs. Hawthorne remained diplomatic but firm. Unless you have substantive evidence, we consider the matter closed. Marjorie's eyes glittered with unshed tears, or cunning. Fine, she whispered, but I'll protect Larkspur Ridge by any means. The next morning, I found my milkweed seedlings uprooted, soil scattered. Footprints, narrow, stiletto-shaped, led back to the curb. I replanted, installed a motion-activated camera, and forwarded footage to Deputy Chen. 2 days later, at 2:11 a.m. The camera captured a figure in a hooded windbreaker snipping zip ties on the gate latch. Squad cars arrived within 5 minutes, the figure, a very unathletic silhouette, fled, twisting an ankle on the curb. Deputies recovered pruning shears engraved MS, the range star, parked nearby, was impounded for investigation. Marjorie arrived at the precinct on crutches, insisting she'd loaned the shears to a friend. Officers noticed fresh mud on her stilettos. Charges filed, attempted vandalism, trespass, violation of a police warning. At arraignment, the magistrate offered 2 choices, $1,000 fine plus community service hours or attendance in a conflict resolution workshop and reimbursement for damaged plantings. Marjorie chose the workshop, likely envisioning a breezy seminar with herbal tea. Workshop reality, 6 weeks of Saturday mornings led by Dr. Louise Nguyen, a retired FBI negotiator known for zero tolerance of excuses. By week 2 I began receiving tentative emails from Marjorie, could we perhaps discuss alternative landscaping to soften the fence? I replied with polite openness, a strategic olive branch. We met one Sunday at the still-standing cedar wall. She shuffled forward, not in stilettos but in sensible sneakers. Dr. Nguyen says I must acknowledge the impact of my actions, she murmured. I apologize. I nodded. Thank you. The fence stays. But maybe, a trellis on the street-facing side. Climbing roses could help butterflies. The suggestion surprised me with its reasonableness, and nodded to Mr. Griffin's monarch fears. We sketched possibilities. Marjorie offered to purchase rose canes and soil. I accepted, with the stipulation she deliver them via Sycamore Lane. She laughed, a sound devoid of sarcasm. As spring ripened, community perception shifted. Parents discovered the fence provided a safe play backdrop. Teens painted a mural on the inside. Swirling blues and yellows depicting migrating monarchs. Mr. Griffin beamed. Mrs. Hawthorne called it unexpectedly delightful. Marjorie completed the workshop, hosted a lemonade stand to fund mural paint, and, rumor said, volunteered to direct traffic at school drop-off, using cones instead of shortcuts. Her range star idled exclusively on asphalt. Deputy Chen closed the case file, gifting me a small plaque, good fences, good neighbors, great sourdough. It occupies a place of honor in my kitchen. Summer settled over Larkspur Ridge meadows like warm linen. My once scarred lawn now boasted a fresh border of purple coneflowers, courtesy of the neighborhood garden brigade, Marjorie among them. The cedar wall, half hidden by blooming roses, radiated resinous perfume in the heat. Sprinklers whispered at dawn, butterflies performed lazy circuits above milkweed. One humid evening, Mrs. Hawthorne knocked holding a wicker basket. Council voted to rename the cut-through path at the far cul-de-sac, she announced, since your driveway is off-limits. The new name, Whitaker Way, pedestrian access only. She handed me the basket, scone studded with lavender, then added, your patience taught us boundaries can be beautiful. I bit into a scone, tasted lemon and thyme, tasted also the faint flavor of victory. Not the gloating sort, well, maybe a little. Days flowed gently. Children chalked hopscotch grids on sidewalks, seniors strolled nightly loops past the mural. Visitors admired the fence, murals, roses, and, always, the story. "You're the sourdough guy who built a wall," they'd say. I'd reply it was more a canvas than a wall now, and offer a loaf. Marjorie's transformation proved genuine. She organized a Saturday, slow-ride parade, encouraging residents to cruise Sycamore Lane at exactly 15 miles per hour, waving to neighbors. No vehicles entered my drive. During the parade she presented me with an embossed parking permit plaque, reserved for antique roadsters only. I mounted it below the mailbox, version 5, still standing. In August, a regional magazine profiled Larkspur Ridge's Boundary to Beauty initiative. Photos showcased the mural, roses, and yes, the infamous fence. The article quoted Marjorie, "I thought efficiency mattered most, but respect matters more." I clipped the piece for my scrapbook, right beside sourdough recipes. One moonlit weekend, I towed my fishing boat, named Patience, to the nearby lake. Harold the foreman joined me, his fee finally collected. We caught 2 bass, released one, and grilled the other at dusk. From the water we could almost see Sycamore's roofs glowing under street lamps. I toasted cedar walls, butterfly murals, and second chances. Back home, I discovered a small package on the porch, handwritten tag, "To Daniel, thanks for showing us that strong lines can draw people together. MS." Inside lay a pair of lavender-colored loafers, precisely my size. A note added, "For walking Whitaker Way in style." I laughed aloud, slipped them on, and strolled to the cedar wall. Roses rustled in a warm breeze, releasing cinnamon-sweet fragrance. Somewhere a range-star engine purred softly, sound now of a neighbor heading home the long way, the right way. I leaned against the cool wood, eyes lifting to the mural's monarchs. They seemed poised to take flight into the night sky, carrying with them a lesson I'd learned, taught, and received anew: boundaries, respected, create room for grace. Perseus the cat sauntered out, twined around my ankles, approved the loafers, then settled beneath milkweed to watch fireflies spark. I breathed deep, cedar, roses, summer grass, and distant sourdough cooling on the rack. Not a horn blast in earshot. Just harmony, earned and ordinary, echoing along Whitaker Way.